Welcome to this episode of the Leading in Dentistry podcast. I'm Dr. Wes Eggett. After spending the last 20 years in a variety of leadership positions, and as a student of leadership myself, I started Leading in Dentistry to share what I found and to continue learning with you. If anything from this episode stands out, check out the show notes, our online courses, or one-on-one coaching on leadingindentistry.com. Welcome back to another episode of the Leading in Dentistry podcast. I'm Dr. Wes Eggett. For those of you new to the podcast, I'm a practicing associate dentist just outside of Denver, Colorado, and started Leading in Dentistry to help develop the leadership skills of each team member in the dental office, not just the business owner. And today we have a legend in dentistry, Dr. Richard Lowe. Welcome to the podcast. I've been following you forever, and I am so excited, so honored to have you on and to chat a little bit about your experiences in dentistry.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on your show. It means a lot. And we were talking before that you heard some of my early podcasting days when it was pretty bumpy at times, and it continues to be pretty bumpy. And I'm an open book, so I'm excited to talk about all the stuff and my opinions on leadership in dentistry. I think it's so cool that you're starting this. I think it's amazing that you're focusing not just on the doctor. You know, you've been doing this, I think, for about a year now, right?
So I've been out of the Army for a little over a year, but
Cool.
I did my 4 years through HPSB. Yeah. So graduated 2019. So going on six more. Let's go.
Let's go. Let's do it. Cool.
All right. So tell me a little bit about your history in leadership in dentistry. One of the things that has impressed me about you as I followed you throughout your career is a lot of the things that you have done have been as a self-starter. So you took a lot of initiative, and that's really the theme of leading in dentistry, is that you don't have to wait until you're in charge to be a leader. And I feel like you could really speak to that. Now you're in a position in your career where you are in that leadership position, and you have been for a while, but you're also very experienced in what it's like to not be the leader and then take some initiative anyway and do something anyway, kind of have some influence over your personal sphere or your domain. Could you tell us a little bit about your history, your experiences getting to where you are now?
Yeah, well, and it's funny you say like you're a leader in dentistry right now, and I'm like, well, actually, I'm kind of back to being a solopreneur and like
Sure.
starting all over.
Sure.
So if anyone is interested in hearing another train wreck story, follow me on Instagram at nextlevelfathers.dmd. There's gonna be a lot of hot takes, a lot of vulnerability, a lot of calling of people out. But this actually made me think of, as you were talking, it made me think of the book I read in dental school, Never Eat Alone.
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard of that one or read that one at all?
I've heard about it when you talked about it.
Okay. So the reason I love that book, it's kind of this ultimate networking book, but not in like a, here's my business card, let me shake your hand, like type networking. It's like, how can you make real deep connections with people and serve them? And at the same, if you do that, it opens doors to you. It opens really powerful doors. And so I read that book as like a second year in dental school, and I made a list. I made a list of the people I wanted to meet and interact with in dentistry. And I reached out to them, like people teaching at Spear. Gary Takis was one of the early podcasters, and I, got to see his practice and the behind the scenes on his podcast. And then Howard Ferran at Dentaltown. Same thing. I went to his practice. I went to the Dentaltown headquarters, and I ended up pestering them until they brought me on as a student intern. And I think that willingness to go interact with people and learn from others. And I didn't have a way to really serve them other than at Dentaltown, but now podcasting is a default way to connect with really cool people and actually serve them, where it's like now they're reaching your audience, they're getting to tell their story. And so but that book for me is like a little bit part of that origin story. And maybe that would help someone who's kind of in this same, like, man, I want to do something a little bit more, a little bit different as a self-starter within dentistry. I freaking love podcasts. I never think there'll be enough podcasts in dentistry because there's so many niches, there's so many areas that people have expertise or passion for, and people burn out and they stop podcasting, and someone else has got to pick it up and keep going with it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So one of the emphases of the podcast is also for the dental assistants and for the hygienists and the office managers and admin, all the way down to sterile techs. I mean, anybody in the dental office can be a leader, because if you're waiting until you're in charge, I mean, there's only one person who could do that, right? And I want to try to access the majority of the dental office does not own the business, right?
Right.
And so if there's so many people out there that want to make a difference and want to have some influence over their specific sphere, you've worked in a number of different dental offices and a number of different environments, including the military yourself as well. And what kind of experiences have you had with other team members who have taken some initiative, or the ones that really stand out as people who went the extra mile and did a little bit extra, or did something a little bit different? What kind of experiences have you had there, and what can you glean from those experiences to help give advice to some assistant out there who wants to make a difference when they feel like, this is my first job ever and I have no idea what I'm doing and I want to make something of this career? What would you say to that person?
Well, it's interesting. As soon as you said that, I also started thinking of our coaches at Shared Practices. So, I started a podcast called Shared Practices that turned into a coaching and consulting company where we help dentists grow. We have in-person educations and seminar. But our coaching is really to take a doctor from 1 to 2 to 3 doctors, or to really maximize what's possible with one doctor. And our coaches that we have, there's some of them who started as someone at a front desk, or as a dental assistant, or as a hygienist. And they showed up differently than the other people in their office because they took on other roles. They took on other responsibilities. And over time, they end up becoming an office manager. And then they end up becoming a coach. And now they've got this amazing lifestyle where they work from home. They can help people all over the country. They have these amazing relationships with the doctors and the teams that they coach and they help. But it all went back to, how did they show up as a dental assistant? Did they shrug their shoulders and say, that's not my job, I'm doing the minimum, this is everyone else's fault? It's like, no, they looked for opportunities to do more, to help more, to serve their teammates, but then to elevate and to figure out what's next for me. Am I a team lead over other dental assistants? Am I now, the office manager? And I think if you realize what's possible for yourself and you're willing to really lean into that. I think of this one dental assistant we had, Audrey, who she just was different than all the other dental assistants because she would just look around and do stuff. She would just take ownership. She would fill in her knowledge gaps. When she didn't know something, she wasn't too embarrassed to ask and to get help. And man, I would have killed for 10 Audreys, in our office. And she had a baby. She decided she was going to focus more on that for a season of her life. But that's who I think of, is I could see her being an office manager, and I could see her being a coach to dentists, and I could see her, and you don't have to be a coach to dentists. You can go and be a speaker and educate other dentists. There's just so many possibilities. And it also makes me think, sorry, I keep talking about book here. The book, So Good They Can't Ignore You. And in that book, which is a Steve Martin quote, and it's, you need to be so good they can't ignore you. He talks about the adjacent possible of, if you look at someone who's got this kind of crazy career where you're like, how the heck did you end up there? You trace it back to where they started, and never is it, oh yeah, I knew I wanted to be in this crazy, very specific, cool job that I engineered for myself. It was never that. It was always, what am I really interested in, passionate about, and also that I'm good at, that I can continue to really lean into and get to be amazing at this opportunity right now, whatever it is. And then something would open up that was just a little different. It was okay, I'm going to have to develop a new skill set, but this is interesting and I can lean into that. And you do that 10 times in your career, and all of a sudden you have this crazy mix of skills that no one else has. And so as a dental assistant, it's maybe I can learn implants, super well, all of the workflow of implants, or I can get really good at dentures and removable, or I can get really good at helping with ortho. And maybe someday you're training and teaching that. Maybe you're still an assistant if you want to be, but then you go help one day a week at other offices train assistants on that procedure and or on how they can learn more in that. So I just see that there's way more potential. And some people look at this as an entry level job, and some people look at this as an opportunity into a whole new world. And dentistry just has all sorts of options if you're looking for it.
That's awesome. So if someone's in that situation where they feel like they want to do a little bit extra or want to just in their office, let's say that they're brand new and they're just in their first couple of months as a dental assistant, straight out of dental assisting school, or they're being trained on the job, and they don't really know where the boundaries are of what is possible and what's not possible. I feel like sometimes those people would have the most open mind to what you're saying, because they don't know they wouldn't color outside the lines because they don't know where the lines are. Right. And as you spend more time in the profession, you start to realize how systematized we are in dentistry. And we say, you do this, this is where you're supposed to be in order to do your job. And we can start to feel pigeonholed and kind of kill some of that passion or that innovation that, have you heard of Liz Wiseman? She talks about multipliers. She talks about rookie smarts. She has the newer book she has is called Rookie Smarts, where if you approach everything with the mindset of a rookie, someone who doesn't know the thing, then you have an open mind on what is possible. And I guess my takeaway from what you're saying is to encourage everyone to approach what they're doing with the rookie smarts, right? With that attitude of like, I don't know what I can do, so I'm just going to try to do everything. And push against the world and see where it pushes back and see where the boundaries are, so you can see how much you can actually get done. And
beautiful. Can I jump in here?
Go for it.
Well, I always like, one of the things I love doing in podcasts is getting concrete, because like we talk about these principles. So like, what does this look like? If you're a dental assistant, how do I actually do this? And I would say, first off, curiosity is exactly what you're just talking about. Like, I'm curious, I'm interested in learning more. And then cross-training. So if an assistant came to me and was like, listen, I feel like I've learned the back super well. I've learned sterilization. I'm to the point where I've like organized inventory. I've helped you order. I've helped build a manual of how we do things and document it so that we can train new assistants. Those are all very low-hanging fruit of things that an assistant can do. But then can you take that and say, I want to learn the front desk so that if someone is out, I can sub in. I can come, cross-train. So cross-train me in insurance, cross-train me in, answering calls. How do I answer calls really well? Cross-train me in case acceptance so that when I'm in the back and I'm like talking to patients, I can help along the process. Like, cross-train me on co-diagnosis. Like, what is the hygienist looking at? What are they seeing? And what leads patients to accept treatment. And if you keep coming back to the dentist and you're like, what, you keep trying to help in hygiene. You like, when you've got downtime, you go like help turn over rooms and like learn from the hygienist. No doctor is ever going to be like, no, I don't want you to cross-train. And if they are, you need to leave that office. You need to find a new workplace, because you will never grow in that office. And so that would be the very concrete version of this, is give yourself a roadmap to learn everything there is in the dental practice. Like, even go to the dentist and be like, so like, what are metrics? What are our goals? What are our numbers? And how can I help you get there? I mean, I would die if a dental assistant came to me and said that. I would just be like, who are you? Like, this is amazing. So that's the concrete version of it. And you kind of talking about the rookie side of this is what made me realize, like, okay, what does this actually look like? That's what it looks like to me.
Yeah. And I think one of the things we talk about pretty much any coaching program you're ever going to go through is talk about mindset first, right? And one of the downsides about this whole project that I've tried to get off the ground with leading in dentistry is that the people who are very committed to the career, who have financial resources in order to pay for coaching, who have a lot on the line, those are the dentists, right? And so most of the resources out there are geared towards people who have the time, have the commitment, and can pay for it. And there's not a lot of resources out there for people who are just getting started, or who have that that initiative, but they don't have the resources or the time, or even they don't even know if this is what they're going to do forever, right? And I think that if I could give a message to the dentists out there, approaching it from the mindset of, even if this dental assistant, you don't see them being there forever, or if they have other career aspirations, looking at someone with their potential for what they want to do over the course of their life, you can help them tap into the things that they are passionate about and find opportunities to do those types of things in the office, right? So in the Army, I had a sergeant who was, the entire time I knew him, he was trying to get into flight school so he could go be a helicopter pilot. And I knew he wasn't going to be in dentistry. So how was I going to encourage him to really get the most out of his time in the Army and the most out of his time in dentistry? And so I found, what are the things that are going to apply to you as a pilot? How am I going to help you do those things now? So how am I going to teach you how to use spreadsheets and analyze metrics and get things organized on a calendar and that kind of thing? So there's a lot that dentists can do as well to help others develop that mindset, right? To be open-minded about what the possibilities and the potential is. Sorry, go ahead.
No, this got me thinking of something else. First off, bum off your doctor's CE. Like, if your doctor is going to go take a course, say, can I come with you? Or if it's an online course, say, hey, can I watch that course that you just took? Whether it's practice management, whether it's clinical. So like, maybe you don't have the resources, but your doctor is going and investing in themselves. Like, just come along for the ride. And then this one might feel a little sneaky, so this is kind of a hot take, but when I talk to dental students or people in the Army in particular, I tell them to do something a little shady, which is pretend like you're interested in a specialty. So say that there's a procedure you really like. You like implants, you like endo, you like ortho, and really open your mind to, like, you know what, maybe I actually would consider specializing in this. And then go to the people in your department who are like the pros mentors or who are the endodontists or whatever, and say, you know what, I'm really thinking about possibly going into this as a residency. Could I come and learn from you? Because when, as shallow and sad as it is, a lot of specialists, if they think you're like, nah, I'm just a GP and I'm trying to learn, they like close off. They get like, no, like, that's not what you do. Like, go specialize. That's what you should do. But all of a sudden, if you are saying, I'm kind of thinking about going into this, they're trying to sell you. Now they're trying to like give you as much as they possibly can to get you in. And even if you're like in your heart of hearts, you're like, nah, I'm probably not going to specialize. Just fake it a little bit, and you can like open the door just a smidge to like, no, that's a real possibility, and maybe I would. Same thing for a dental assistant. Go to your doctor and say, you know what, like, I'm considering going back to school and getting my hygiene license, or even like, would it be possible for me to get into dentistry? Like, that's something I want to learn more, because I want to see if that's a possibility, if it's a career, if it's potential. And I don't know if I can get through the courses. Even if you feel like, I'm not good enough in school, I can never be a dentist, have that mindset and express that. And all of a sudden, the relationship and the dynamic will change. And that person will open more to you, because people like mentoring. They like showing people the path. So that'd be another little, like I said, a little controversial, a little sneaky, even if it's not completely true. If you can tell yourself that, like, yeah, if I had the opportunity, I would totally be a dentist, then say it, say that and be bold, and it will open more doors to you.
That's awesome. That reminds me of something, the canvas strategy. I remember hearing that through Tim Ferriss, where he talks about giving other people a canvas to paint on. And oftentimes we feel, especially people who are inclined to feel like they want to be leaders, it comes from this place oftentimes of like a mix of narcissism and insecurity, where it's, I feel like I'm good enough to do it, and I also need to prove to myself that I can. There you go.
Clear.
Me too. It's a lot of the driving force behind a lot of what we do. But when you do that, you spend some time trying to put yourself in the spotlight, right? And trying to show that, I have what it takes, I can do this, put me in, coach, that kind of thing. But instead, if you go to the people that you're trying to learn from and say, hey, I want to give you a canvas to paint on, give them the opportunity to show you what they know. I mean, especially for the people who are asking for advice from dentists. It's like you hand the dentist a diploma and an ego on the same day. Like it just comes as a package deal. We just want to talk about ourselves and what we know and what we've learned in our specific way of doing things. And if an assistant or anyone on the team comes to us and says, can you show me how you do this? You're going to get a lot out of that experience because you're giving that person an opportunity to shine. And once you get into a leadership role, doing the same thing, making sure it's not about you as the leader, but giving other people opportunities to do well. So as you know, for the dentists out there, don't make it all about you. It's not about you painting on your canvas. It's about going to that assistant and asking them what they want to do, because oftentimes the team members won't come to the dentist, but the dentist kind of has to get that out of and give that out of their people, create an environment where they want to do more, because maybe they've been in an environment where they couldn't before, and kind of give them that freedom, that
they're scared to.
That latitude. Exactly. So we've talked a little bit about, sorry, go ahead one more time. I want to let you finish up, then I'm going to transition to your burnout discussion.
Well, this relates a little bit, but you also mentioned mindset work. And this year I've worked with 3 different coaches. I've invested a lot in coaching, and actually during months where I had very little income, if at all, I broke down this year. I had to take 2 months of mental health leave because I couldn't take running a DSO. I couldn't take the pressures of it. And I have so much respect for my partners and for people who are able to build large, amazing organizations without breaking. And it's because I was too much of a perfectionist and a people pleaser. I wanted everyone to be happy. And in leadership, you can't do that. Someone's always going to be upset, and that's part of the job. And also I didn't have the discipline to hold on to myself to maintain what I needed to maintain. And so this year I had a full breakdown, and I stepped back from the role that I was in. I stepped down as CEO last fall, and then I was clinical director, and I couldn't take that either. And I just broke down, and I was really grateful for my partners' grace and their willingness to create space for me. But it also meant that I wasn't working, and I did not have a salary other than just a little bit here, which was fair. They were working their butts off. And so I invested in $43,000 worth of coaching over several programs and several people that I talked with. And it was a big leap of faith, and it was a big sacrifice. And this last round of coaching, and a lot of it was around building an online business, and what I'm doing right now with a men's group for dentistry. And the most recent coach I signed up for, ironically, is a cosmetic dentist from the UK who burned out and quit dentistry 10 years ago. And he went from he's gone from several points, being dead broke. He was kind of driving Ubers at one point. He was, a year ago, he actually was in a pretty rough spot again after he quit this marketing agency that he built up. And so he's been in this online space. And as I joined his program, he forces you to go in order. His name's Tom Youngs. He forced me to go in order of level 0 of the program and level 1 of the program. And there's a ton of mindset work. There's a ton of affirmation stuff. There's a ton of, a vision board. I've never done a vision board. And I stopped trusting my ability to set goals, because I would set goals as I burnt out, as I kind of hit this midlife crisis. I wouldn't keep them. For 10 years, it was get into dental school, get through dental school, into residency, build this podcast, into practice ownership, scale. And I always had these goals, these things to look forward to. And I broke, and I no longer trusted myself to set goals. I was going backwards. And now I'm leaning back into a lot of this mindset work that I'm a little resistant to. Manifesting is weird to me. And self-affirmations, I've taken issue with that in the past, but I was screw it. If Tom says to do it, I'm going to do it. And it's changed my life in the last month. I can't believe what it's done for me. And this applies to dental assistants. This applies to dentists. You don't have to pay for some high level of coaching to get mindset work. You can read books, you can be inspired, you can interact and associate with people who have these higher mindsets. But I was really glad you brought that up, because I was that's been a big part of my last 6 months, going from a very deep pit of kind of despair and burnout and brokenness, there's been a ton of like getting my mind right, building discipline, building self-respect, and that translates. It translates into your practice. It translates into your marriage, into your home, leading your family, into your faith, your community, all of those things. If your head is wrong, you will miss so much of your potential. You'll miss the impact, for good or bad, that you're having on everyone around you. And there's so much yield. And also at the same time, I fully understand when people are like, I'm not going to do mindset work. That's stupid. So I get both sides of it.
I appreciate you sharing that. On my way into the office this morning, I was listening to a podcast about leadership and vulnerability. And what does that mean? And the ability, I mean, you've had this since the get-go, but the ability to just get vulnerable and talk about what's really going on behind the scenes, I think is something that sets you apart. And I think that that's it's awesome to see. And I appreciate you sharing that with us, because when I am doing these discussions on leadership, I'm always talking about how to build a leader, convincing someone you can do it. You can make yourself into something that you thought you couldn't be before, and expand your idea of yourself and become that thing. But then a lot of times what happens is you reach that level of being the leader. And so we've talked a lot about so far about getting someone to the leadership point. But then when you are the leader, being able to be real about what it is that you're going through, and what are some of the struggles of leadership, and how do you handle that when you are in a position of leadership where everyone's counting on you and you have that pressure. And it sounds like that's something that over the course of last year you've had to really tackle. And so what would you say to those people, to the dentists out there, or to the assistants who feel like they're stretching themselves a little farther than maybe they thought they could go? The whole mentality out there, the Instagram hustle culture, is just like power through and do it and get through it and you can do it. And as much as we want to tell everybody you can do it, at what expense? I've been thinking a lot about extreme ownership, and it can also come across as everything's my fault, and that's not a mentally healthy space to be in. So, given your experiences with the struggles of leadership, what kind of things have you found that have been helpful for you? And taking a step back is one of those things, I would imagine, as well. But what would you say to those people who are in the grind?
I would say that this is where your relationship to stress, and your relationship to failure, and your relationship to your goals. How attached are you to your ego, to your goals, to looking good on the outside, to being afraid of failing? And how much do you use shame as a motivator, like self-shame? Which my dad actually introduced me to this book called Positive Intelligence. And I was a little like, okay, Dad, like, what's this about? He used to train Crucial Conversations, which is an incredible framework for having super difficult conversations. He did that for almost 20 years. And he leaned into this new book and actually got certified, this Positive Intelligence framework. And one of the things he talks about in the book is the idea that we have these, saboteurs. There's 10 of them. And like, you do a test and you see what your saboteurs are. And the saboteurs are actually survival mechanisms. So when we're a kid, when we're in our family situations, like everyone's family of origin has trauma. Everyone has lessons they've learned the wrong way through poor examples. Even if our parents are trying the hardest, even we as parents, we try our hardest. We come up with these coping strategies that allow us to get through hard times. And sometimes it's like negative self-talk of just like beating yourself into submission. And the dangerous thing is that it works. Or sometimes it's the opposite of extreme ownership of like, I'm a victim, everything else is everyone else's fault. And that's how we cope with the negative things in our lives. And those strategies allow us to kind of function. But then at some point we realize those strategies are also leading to our demise, and are the source of suffering in our life. So it's like overwhelm. What is the story you're telling yourself when it comes to overwhelm? And I've had this a lot recently. I have this with my ADHD, and that I get really overwhelmed. Email is overwhelming for me. I have like 5 email accounts, and I've just hired a new virtual assistant out of the Philippines. She just started 2 days ago. And I had, when I was CEO and when we were doing things in shared practices, I had some really great personal assistants. Some of them were dental students. Some of them were other people. But like, I was embarrassed for a long time. My wife cannot understand my like unhealthy relationship with email and communication and getting overwhelmed. And now in my mind, overwhelm is the sign of growth. And it's like, if you're overwhelmed, that's good. Don't freak out about it. And I've learned to embrace messy action much more than before. Like I used to try and, what's the perfect thing to be doing right now with my time? And I would kind of stress out, and I'd always feel like I'm making bad choices. I'm not spending my time the way I want to. And I would beat myself up about that. And that shame and that failure would spiral. And redefining our relationship with failure and dropping the shame is something I work with dentists every single day with in Next Level Fathers in my men's group, because we're doing like fitness and nutrition. I'm helping dentists get six packs, like fathers who are burned out, who are going the wrong way. Can we get you the most shredded you've ever been in your entire life? And use that journey, because you're going to fail. You're going to fail to hit your fitness. You're going to fail to hit your nutrition. You're going to fail in the daily game that we set up for people. Can we use that as a microcosm of deconstructing shame and learning from failure in a very safe space? So anyways, I'm now going on and on and on, but hopefully there was something there that was applicable to someone or they can relate with.
No, it's fantastic. The idea of overwhelm and thinking about like what's your purpose, what am I supposed to be doing? What's the best thing I can do with my time right now? I remember asking myself that question like 15 years ago, and almost every day since then, thinking about, people talk about finding out what your purpose is, your purpose in life. But really, for me, the better question has always been, what is my purpose in this moment? What can I do to be in this moment as best as possible? And at some points, it's led to being very present and having a good experience with what I'm doing in the moment. And sometimes it's led to sense of overwhelm and burnout or anxiety where I'm not doing the best thing that I should be with this time. I had a commute for 35 minutes in dental school each way and 45 minutes in the Army each way. And I remember thinking to myself, if I just like started learning Russian or something at this point, what could I have done with that time? And then you get into the cycle of shame and feeling like a failure and not getting enough of, what type of experience am I really supposed to be having? So I really connect with that. And I think a lot of people can get that as well, but knowing that it's okay to have that overwhelm it's part of it. Right. And it's not part of it, deal with it. It's part of it and make the most of it. I remember hearing, Dr. David Maloli say, higher levels, bigger devils, right? And so as you're feeling that tension and that stress, that overwhelm, it's a sign of growth that, the problems I'm having now are the problems I wished for a year ago. I remember the first year in dental school, it was me and a friend who was in medical school at the same program, went out to dinner and we were talking about how hard life was at that moment. And then I remember thinking, wait, like a year and a half ago, we would have killed to be where we are right now. Right. And so just taking a moment to appreciate that. But I want to give you the opportunity to talk a little bit more about the men's group with Next Level Fathers and tell me a little bit about what you're doing there and how people can get involved if that's something that they're interested in pursuing.
Sure. I have to add two little anecdotes. I know you got.
Please do. By all means. No, you're good.
Team meeting. First was one of the mindset shifts that I got out of working with this latest coach was the phrase, there are no problems, only choices. And it reminded me of like, what's the best thing I can be doing in this moment, which is, you know what? I create problems in my head and all I actually have is choices to make right now. So that has been a really cool frame for me to work with. The other thing is I actually did start learning Thai while I was in dental school on my commute, so that because I wanted to go to Thailand. I had known some Thai people when I was serving a mission in Los Angeles, a Spanish speaking mission. And I started to meet this Thai group within a congregation. And so I took Thai 101 at BYU. And then in dental school, you actually will get paid extra in the Army if you know certain languages, like an extra $500 a month. There's very few ways in the Army to make more money. And that was one of them. And so I was listening to like Thai courses on my drive. And it came to nothing. And I never took the test. And anyways. But it just, you're learning Russian. I was like, yeah, I tried to do that. It did not work. But in terms of Next Level Fathers, so This is an insane men's group of high accountability, of taking a burned out dentist who is secretly broken. Like behind closed doors, whether you're an associate, whether you're an owner, so many of us break in the process of doing this. Like I've talked with doctors with panic attacks, depression, they've lost a child, they've lost a spouse, they're incredibly burnt out, they feel trapped. Like for me, feeling trapped is one of my biggest moments of breakdown. They're addicted to alcohol or pornography or their phone or gambling or, drugs, like worse things, or affairs. There's all these ways that men either implode or explode. I think men and women like suffer differently. People don't like to talk about gender differences. We both suffer and that we both have unhealthy coping strategies, but men tend to isolate. They tend to close off until they either implode or explode. And since I started talking about this, so many dentists have reached out and just said, like, I don't know who to talk to. Like, can I talk with you? I'm having panic attacks on my drive to work every day, and I need to talk about that. And so I'm like, yes, like let's go, let's talk. So this men's group, Next Level Fathers, if you want to learn more, I've released, it's a secret podcast called Broken to Unrecognizable: How to Drop 50 Pounds and Become a Next Level Husband, Father, and Dentist. And it's a secret podcast because it's a private feed, kind of like some of these people who have podcasts where they've got a private feed without ads or they've got more content. So if you want that, I'm sending people to my Instagram at nextlevelfathers.dmd. And I'm going pro on Instagram this year. I'm going to try and put out a ton of content, a lot of my like hot takes and vulnerable stuff that I've got going on, lessons I want to share on there, which is very uncomfortable for me. I don't like making video. I like making audio. And the link is there. So it's in my bio. Any of my videos you can comment on and it'll auto send you the link. You can DM me, it'll auto send you the link. So that would be where I send people. If you're like, I want a six pack, I'm a dentist, like I'm burnt out, like I am suffering alone and I don't really have good friends within dentistry that I can share the real crap in my life. That's what this is, mixed with high accountability and mixed with serving your family and faith and spirituality and self-development. All of that combined, everything other than practice management or clinical dentistry is combined in this group. And it's my life's passion. I can see myself doing this for 20 years because the impact it's already making, how much fun I'm having. It's really cool. I know we got to run. No,
that's awesome. That reminds me, the guy who said the Canvas strategy thing, he also at one point, I think it's Derek Sievers, I'm not sure how you say his name. He said, if more information was the answer, we'd all be millionaires with perfect abs, right?
Yeah.
And so it's not that more information is the answer, but it's the execution, right? And so you're helping people do that and helping them execute on their goals. And it's not necessarily, I would assume that you would say it's not necessarily about the six pack, but the process of who you become in the process, right? That's what it's all about. And it's the same thing in leadership in general. It's not about being the boss. It's not about having the power, but it's about what type of person I remember Mark Costas talking about this. What type of person do I have to become in order to accomplish that level of success, whatever success may be for that particular person or that particular situation? But what type of person do I need to be in order to do that thing? And I think that's awesome that you're giving people an outlet to do that. And it's been very motivational for me. I've listened to the Secret podcast. I started the own little daily game on my phone to start tracking the different things. So this is even people who don't join. I'm like, just listen to the podcast and freaking do it on your own. That's right.
If you don't want the accountability, you can still make massive change in your life. So that makes me so happy to hear.
Yeah, it's awesome. But again, I just want to say thank you for coming on and chatting about your experiences and giving some advice. I know not just me, but a lot of folks look up to you and appreciate all that you do. So keep it up. I'm excited to see where Next Level Fathers go and follow along on Instagram.
Thank you. Let's do it again. Anytime you want to talk, I'll come on your show. You're an amazing host in that you're bringing out so much that I want to talk about. And that's what makes a good podcast host. So you're incredible at this and I'd love to come back anytime. So thank you.
Thank you very much, man. Well, you have a good one.
You too. Take care.
And that's it for this episode of the Leading in Dentistry podcast. If you learned something today, please leave a 5-star review and share the episode with a friend. If you're ready to take the next step for yourself or provide leadership training for a team member, visit leadingindentistry.com to check out our online courses and one-on-one coaching.